With this year's CitizenCon being one of the most abbreviated on record and featuring highlights like Jared taking a pizza break, which is still something we can't do in-game, it's hard to imagine that all that much would be happening in Star Citizen. However, it turns out there's quite a bit going on in the development of our favorite Forever project. They did of course mention some new and exciting things like another look at the Genesis system, giving us a biblical representation of planetary creation as close to being on par with reality as is legally acceptable. They also revealed what will be the first iteration of crafting, where all you need is this magical replicator box you can haul around with you to put parts and materials in one side and pull a hot and ready weapon, armor, or fully cooked chicken out of the other. Yet the star of the show was the revelation that Nyx was not just a dot on the horizon, but a brand new system with a wormhole lubed up and ready for us to enter in a matter of weeks. But since that time has already passed, we're well on our way to diving into the third system of Star Citizen's universe. But much like the rest of the game, this system is still missing many of the features we expected it to have, like any of the planets or this totally not line and mine Hathor setup that they talked about in CitizenCon. However, what is here is the return of Delamar and everyone's favorite hole in the wall, Levki. But unlike its long-forgotten placeholder in the Stanton system, this new cylindrical city has everything you need on 3 floors of rustic, rocky adventure. Whether you want to revisit that classic hangar from the old hangar module, or check out the hospital section hanging over a pit of certain and painful death, or venture down to the marketplace to find all sorts of cute little stores packed in beside one another, including this one that just sells toys or this other one that has fun plants, or head all the way down to the bottom where you can reenact the end of Terminator 2 while refining your junk into better junk, these constantly running elevators will finally give you one more innovative way to miss the train by half a second. Yet if you want to escape from this isolated asteroid acropolis and aren't keen on moonwalking out the back door straight into the vacuum of space, you can always try one of the many new ships that have appeared from IAE's celebration of capitalism. Yet if you did manage to take a trip into the lofty pink clouds of Orison's venue hosting this event for the first time, you'd immediately be greeted by the latest spear-pointed flagship for the fiscally irresponsible, the RSI Perseus. Coming in at 60% of the size of the well-tested torpedo boat of the RSI Polaris, but 80% of the cost, this hardened war machine takes the term gunship to a new level by having 4 size 8 mega cannons split across 2 turrets on the top and bottom, giving you the widest possible range to fuck people all the way up and back down again. These turrets also come with an additional pair of size 3 Gatling guns slapped on just in case you want to try to pick off some fighters with the blazing fast capital ship fighting turn rates. But you can always leave those little shits to the 6-point defense turrets tacked on the hull that will also fend off any missiles or torpedoes locked in on those big swinging guns. But like most strange-looking things, it's much better on the inside, and whether you take the personnel elevator or the handy 96 SCU cargo hold elevator, you'll make your way directly into the heart of the ship. Here you can check out either side for the convenience of a docking collar, allowing you to attempt the impossible docking minigame from whichever side you feel the least anger from. You can also access the torpedo rooms here, where you can load up to 20 size 5 rocket-propelled good times. Toward the rear of this lower deck, you'll find the elevator and ladder access, as well as the door that takes you to one of those colon-cleansing turrets for the bottom of the ship. If you head up the elevator to the main deck, you'll emerge in the place where the crew of people you convince to sit in turrets for hours will most likely spend their free time. Like in this mess hall with wonderful amenities like a dining table, a non-functioning pool table, and a corner bench with a luxurious view of the hallway. Across that hallway are all of their bunks, taking up as little space as possible to leave plenty of room for breakdancing, and one shared shitter shower ready for a half a dozen asses. And there's even a walk-in closet for all of their weapons and suits that you might think would conveniently connect to the main central room, but doesn't. But you can head right back out and slip into the engineering room to take care of all of those cool engineering tasks that are most likely probably and just maybe coming in 4.5. Exiting this hallway back to the main room gives you a catwalk view of the cargo area with the power to raise and lower that cargo elevator, as well as turn it into an impromptu session of NBA Jam with the flip of a switch. And if you head further toward the front, you'll return to that torpedo room, but high above it where you can access a console to send those tantalizing tubes on their way to meet and greet some new friends in the verse. And through one more door, you'll access the top turret nestled between your 4 favorite weapons of precision destruction. But if you make your way to the top level of the ship, you'll find yourself where the bosses hang out, and if you stroll past the non-functioning escape pod, you'll end up right outside the captain's quarters. This cozy abode features a bench seat with a window view through only 6 feet of wall gap, as well as a classic bed pod and a high-quality desk for all of your captain needs. And it even includes a monitor tied exclusively to viewing the outside of your door, so absolutely no one can sneak up on you during your private desk times. And no room would be complete without an executive shitter shower for only a single ass. Yet on the opposite side of those escape pods lies a surprisingly compact bridge with only a pilot, co-pilot, and gunner seat that will allow you to take the helm of this flying stack of cannons. From here, you can control the two much smaller and probably pointless remote-sized 3 turrets on the top and bottom of the ship, as well as fly it with the nimble accuracy you'd expect from a 100-meter behemoth death ship. But RSI isn't just making the biggest, baddest, and bulkiest flying wedges that they possibly can. They've also given us one more option in the world of salvage with a name not one single person bothered to sanity check, the RSI Salvation. This tiny little Pop-Tart follows the Drake Gollum into the field as a basic entry point for anyone interested in getting into the trashman profession, but they aren't sure if they want to invest in a Vulture or a Fortune. This affordable VHS-shaped vehicle gives you all of the things you need to carve up your first ships with dual hull scrapers, as well as the power to fracture and disintegrate those frames into delicious pixie dust to slurp up in an auto-loading 6 SEU Assport for easy retrieval later on. And while it can't jump very far or haul very much at a time, it makes up for it by being so agile that you might be able to survive long enough to use this tiny pair of size 1 guns to defeat an equally shitty ship in a space slap fight. Just don't stay out there in the scrap fields too long, because this flying Xbox doesn't have anything close to an interior, and you don't want to die of dehydration in your seat because eating and drinking in a cockpit is still a task too complex to achieve. Yet being strapped to the front of a spacefaring hunk of metal that's one stern look from complete destruction is more than you'd expect from a Drake ship, and nothing exemplifies that better than the Drake Gollum. So obviously the only logical path forward is the all-new Drake Gollum Ox. This takes the Gollum's familiar design of looking like someone forgot to finish building it and adapts it by ripping out the mining parts and giving it wide, childbearing hips with nothing but the cold void of space between them, as well as an extendable tractor beam on the rear. You may think, isn't this just the Argo MPUV tractor? And you would be absolutely right, but unlike that ship that still has practically no purpose in game because of its lack of a quantum drive, this one has that, and thus becomes cool as fuck. It also features a Hull A comparable 64 SEU capacity, but one-ups it by being able to hold 32 SEU boxes instead of only stupid 16 SEU boxes. And all you have to give up in the trade-off is amenities like a bed, a shitter shower, and the self-respect that comes with using a ship that doesn't look like it was rolled down a cliff the moment it came off the assembly line. However, Drake has been working on some R&D for a ship that actually looks like you could walk inside of it without a respirator, though the result kind of feels like what you get if you told a 5-year-old to make a spaceship from a cardboard box, and that's part of the magic in the all-new Drake Clipper. Filling in the previously unmentioned gap between the Drake Cutter and Corsair, the Clipper has coined the new descriptor of Generalist, which obviously means it sucks equally at everything. So when you take a stroll up the long ramp at the bottom, you'll end up in a modest and definitely not Starfield-themed entrance that doubles as an extremely modest 12 SCU cargo area. Heading up from there will put you in the bottom half of your engineering room, where you get to hang out uncomfortably close to these large rear engines. And through the next door, you'll find yourself in the dark confines of a room with a blood-red floor that perfectly represents the miraculous revival of the medbed sitting in the corner. And as you continue your zigzagging journey through this two-dimensional world, you'll land in the heart of the ship, a room with a giant empty hole. But in this hole will one day be that long-awaited easy-bake oven of crafting, giving you the power to make all of the things you need to meet your generalist needs while out in the universe. Yet as we continue this loop, you'll come to a little foyer area that offers another way to enter and exit the ship via an elevator perfect for one regular-sized dude after he grabs his guns and gear from the rack beside it. Or when returning from on-foot escapades, you can jump onto this ladder and emerge right into the cockpit ready for takeoff. But you might be a little too tired from all of your generalist adventures, so with a quick turn you'll make your way into a hab as cozy as Drake can make it with your standard bed pod, soft-serve machine, and supremely adequate shitter shower. And as you make your way back to the rear, you'll find the top half of your engineering room with your nearly functional engineering iPad and a Bugs Bunny-style trapdoor for any shenanigans in which you might partake. But as a generalist, you may be wondering, how does this thing do the random thing I was thinking about? Well, it does. For instance, it has 4 size 3 weapons, which of course are all bound to the pilot because a generalist doesn't need friends. And it also has a shitload of missiles slapped all across these wings that are asymmetrical to make sure you know this ship was designed to look weird. But if you always wanted a ship that everyone definitely doesn't think was built exclusively for coneheads, the Drake Clipper is the one for you. But with this ongoing future of crafting and other generalist concepts, you may one day have the power and ability to build yourself a base on the ground, and that will certainly be dangerous. But Greycat is finally coming to the rescue of this currently imaginary future of base defense with the Greycat MDC. Based on the platform of Star Citizen's Turtle Van knockoff, the Greycat MTC, this four-wheeled foray into something slightly more useful gives up that jump seat and remote turret for a point defense turret powered by robots. This self-aiming and self-shooting gun will pick its own targets and ostensibly protect you and the people in your general vicinity from the random bombardment and nose-downing that sociopaths enjoy in their free time. And one day it may actually be useful in the real gameplay of protecting your base and its various base-related activities from people who have a legitimate reason to destroy them. However, if you're looking for a ship that has functionality today and also looks like it might make you bleed if you bump into it wrong, then you need to check out the Kruger L-22 Alpha Wolf. You may wonder if this ship being exactly one more than the Kruger L-21 Wolf and daring to adopt the moniker Alpha in an era where that's fucking weird is actually better than that previous ship. Well, the answer is a resounding kind of. Aside from the obvious change of 2 size 4 ballistic Gatlings being replaced by 2 size 4 laser repeaters, it also gets an upgrade from 8 size 1 missiles to 6 size 2s for fewer but larger explosions, a net gain in my opinion. It also has some different parts like a faster quantum drive. And with its extra little baby wings, it turns slightly faster, but also sacrifices some speed, presumably because of said baby wings. But what really matters is that you can finally head out into the universe and kick a virtually unlimited number of asses using the infinite power of lasers rather than having to run back home every 15 minutes to pick up more bullets. Of course, you can always just buy the laser repeaters separately now and slap them on your Beta Wolf to get the most alpha experience without sacrificing your long and now retractable fin. But if you're tired of all these ships looking like they have a purpose and should be able to fly, then you'll want to check out the first offering from a new manufacturer with the Graze Market Shiv. This welded together homunculus of a Drake Cutlass and a bunch of other random ship pieces may require a tetanus shot just to look at, but it has everything you need to get the job done and make it home before you die of dysentery. Cracking open the rear with this lever will lead you into a cargo bay ready to take 32 SCU of volatile chemicals or medical waste to its destination without even a consideration for safety precautions. Further inside, you'll reach the crew quarters where you can enjoy either of the 2 bunk beds without ever having to worry about being woken up by bright lights, with every corner of this ship being the darkest corner. But if you do jump out of bed into the darkness with a desire to use the facilities, you'll have unlimited access to the private shitter, bucket and shower bucket if you're feeling particularly adventurous. Just don't get them mixed up. Though you may want to avoid using either of these if there's any risk of losing gravity. In the cockpit, you'll find the familiar elevated pilot and co-pilot seat that will let you power up these mismatched engines that leave multicolored thruster trails and test the full capabilities of this monstrosity. With 2 size 4 ballistic Gatlings at your fingertips and a quad turret with size 3 lasers up top, your default loadout will lay down a concentrated volley of random bullshit guaranteed to bring down anything you can catch up to. And if you can't chase them down, you'll have 8 of each size 2 and size 3 missiles to do the work for you. But since this ship is essentially a faster, more maneuverable Drake Cutlass with even more guns available, there's a pretty good chance it won't matter either way. In fact, as long as you're willing to give up 14 SCU of cargo space, $40 in additional cost, and the vast majority of your dignity, this is an easy pick over that classic Cutlass Black. Sometimes though, you want something a little more exotic, and nothing gets the adrenaline pumping like the prospect of Vandal ships on the horizon. But this one isn't hauling an 8-foot-tall razor-toothed murderer. The Asperia Stinger has been meticulously reshaped for human pilots, and this giant horseshoe crab-shaped heavy fighter is ready to strike with a devastating combination of big guns and an absolute shitload of scary-looking pointy parts. Getting into this monstrosity isn't any less scary, as the rear entry ramp has to be released from the creaky bones of an ass rib cage. And as you ascend into the blood-red interior, more bony facades surround the hallway, ensuring that even the Vandal will wonder if they're taking this aesthetic a little bit too far. Yet integrated into this osseous opening will be useful features like component access and a weapon rack, but it lacks a bed or even the simplest shitter shower because Vandal obviously don't sleep and presumably just relieve themselves out a window into the void of space. But what it lacks in facilities or any feature that doesn't look like it was designed to impale you, it makes up for in raw firepower. As you climb into the cockpit, you'll take the helm of a ship with 7 guns all facing the same direction you are, with 2 size 2s, 4 size 4s, and a Vandal Special size 5 as a cherry on top, as well as a cool 16 size 2 missiles in case you manage to miss with everything else. And with the power to punch 100 holes in just about anything in a few seconds all by yourself, you won't have to worry about the fact that you'll have less maneuverability than every other heavy fighter currently available. Yet if you're fully on board with the idea of blowing up your enemy before you ever have to bother turning your ship, you might want to check out the Anvil Paladin. Taking a cue from their manufacturer name, Anvil has made this massive chunk of angled metal the perfect tool to help reshape your opponent's hulls. The term gunship is easy to throw around when every new ship is covered bow to stern with weapons, but the Paladin earns that right by having 8 guns equally split between size 4 and size 5, ensuring every single blast from these laser repeaters is just enough to fuck things up. Yet while the pilot can swing the 4 smaller guns on the outer edges to inflict some pain at their personal request, each one of these can be managed from the lower cockpit area to provide an independent firing arc ready to deliver general unhappiness on both sides of the ship. Then the big guns from the top turret can be taken over from the co-pilot seat to rend asunder anything above you, or you can have it gently glide around the Paladin's taint to the underside where it can provide devastating ground support. Plus you'll have a decent assortment of missiles to crack open any pinatas you spot in the distance for a delicious treat. But a gunship is more than just a ship with guns, and the Paladin comes with 2 floors of surprisingly comfy interior space for you to enjoy between your slaughterings. You'll find the only way on board tucked neatly off to the side with the anticipation building of a slow ramp to guide you to the interior. The first stop will be a room with all of the suit and gun storage you need to fully equip yourself for a heavily armed ground invasion to clean up anyone not eviscerated by your turret sweeps. Stepping through this door will lead you to the main foyer area, where you can scoot around the grand staircase to enter the lower cockpit and take a seat to control those mildly deadly side turrets. And on the way out, you can admire the surprisingly still useless engineering panel to finally make multi-crew ships require multiple crew. But if you take those stairs to the second level, you'll be able to explore the home for all of those inevitably necessary crew, like this cozy dining table where you and your companions can have lengthy discussions about the war crimes you're planning to commit. Around the corner, your first bedroom is available with a fully functional desk, a fully lighted bench seat, and a set of bunk beds ready for a sleepover. And across the hall, you'll find a mirror image of the same exact room so everyone can feel equal in their responsibility for the actions of this killing machine. Returning to the hall after a quick stop at the soft serve nozzles, you can finally head into an exceedingly decent shitter shower with a fully functional mirror where you can check to see if you've lost the light in your eyes after wiping out that last outpost. But while Star Citizen has obviously been pumping out ships and features in the recent months as they do at the end of every year, they aren't quite done with 2025. While the Planets of Nyx and the other interesting new engagements are slated for next year, 4.5 is already on the PTU and potentially ready to bring to the table a whole new tier of Star Citizen gameplay, with engineering finally totally existing only like a year after it was supposed to. But with this year actually delivering quite a bit of stability and playability, it's almost starting to feel like this game is headed toward the prime time direction. It's not there yet, and they could still break everything, as they do, but 1.0 doesn't seem as much like a fantasy as it did when they first mentioned it. But if you'd like to get into Star Citizen at this only slightly awkward point in its development, make sure to use my referral code in the description, because you get stuff and I get stuff, and that's the legal definition of win-win. But if you'd like to see more almost informative videos about Star Citizen, check them out right here beside Mega supporter Adam Wutke, or see if you can find the hundreds of other abbreviated reviews hidden around YouTube for all of those other games.